Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned into the Rebel News live stream, and I want to thank you for your patience. We're 20 minutes late. It was our arch nemesis, technical difficulties, although I'm going to blame it on Amazon like everybody else in the world is doing today. In any event, it is Monday, October 20th, 2025. I'm David Menzies, and my co-host, well, let me tell you a little bit about my co-host, shall I? Do you know what, folks? Today is National Day on Writing, and my co-host wanted to show off her writing prowess by concocting a short story that she sent to me. Alas, I had a hard time deciphering it because she used way too many four-syllable words. She is the she-devil with a sword. She is the Khaleesi of Northern Alberta. She is the sensational Sheila Gunn Reid. How you doing there, Sheila?
I got to be honest with you, I'm not feeling all that sensational. All of a sudden, I feel not well, but we're going to get through the live stream, and I have to find a way to feel better because later on today, we are covering the municipal elections in Alberta.
Oh, yes.
In Edmonton, what brand of progressive crazy person are they going to get? Because it seems as though it's back and forth between two. And then in Calgary, will the conservative movement finally get their act together and get rid of Jyoti Gondek? I'm not so sure. But you know what? If I've learned anything from covering elections, particularly the one in Newfoundland, I could be pleasantly surprised in Calgary at the last minute. I think hopefully the conservative vote coalesces around the right person instead of the fake conservative, but I'll get to that later. We're going live at 7:45 Mountain Time today, so it's going to be a late night for the guys in the studio. Yeah, we are a little bit late today. I think the Amazon Web Services outage hit Zoom, and then it caused a knock-on effect for us, so just bear with us as we deal with that. David, if it's okay with you, maybe we'll go a little bit longer. I said off the top of the show, let's not go long because I've got a full day of live streaming today, but let's just make it up to our viewers if it's okay for you.
Anything for my Khaleesi. And by the way, Sheila, after you lay down the housekeeping rules, please shed some insight to me because I'm bewildered by what's happening in Alberta municipal politics. I lived in Alberta, as you know, for 2 years, 85, 86. And this would have been unthinkable back then, these uber progressives becoming mayors of cities like Edmonton and Calgary. I've always considered Alberta the most conservative province in the Dominion, certainly the most American. That's just my opinion. How the hell did we get here?
It's the Austin, Texas effect, right? You know, Austin is a very artsy, progressive city in one of the most conservative places in the Union, right? So it's just how it is. And Edmonton, I mean, Ralph Klein said it, 30 years ago, maybe 40? Edmonton is a beautiful city. And it is. The River Valley is gorgeous. Lots of green space, but too many mosquitoes and liberals and socialists is what Ralph Klein said. And it is true. It's the seat of government. So you have a lot of bureaucrats there. Calgary, changing demographics in Calgary affect the way people vote. But hopefully they've learned from the years with Naheed Nenshi and his overspending and his vanity projects. And now Jyoti Gondek, with her overspending, vanity projects, climate emergency, and of course, making sure that pastors are arrested at the local library for objecting to men in sequin ladies' underpants reading children's books to them.
I thought the climate emergency was over, Sheila. Greta Thunberg is now always trying to get into Gaza, so I'm assuming...
Oh, David. Toronto had... now we're seeing the nexus of these two crazy ideas, and they are just sort of jamming into each other, but they don't quite fit. There's no, dovetailing there. I saw the no Palestine justice without climate justice protest taking place in Toronto over the weekend. It's just a real potpourri, as they used to say on Jeopardy, of progressive issues in our big cities. And it makes me real grateful that I don't live in those places. Also, quick note, I'm very sad that you didn't point out that today is World Osteoporosis Day,
Oh.
given that our Prime Minister has that real osteoporotic posture. Just looks like a very frail 80-year-old lady's posture there. Let's get into what the rules are, and then we'll get into the news of the day because we've got a ton of stuff to talking about and not a ton of time. We'll see how much I've got in me. If you're watching us on Rumble, thank you for supporting a great free speech platform that has supported Rebel News uncensored. If you want to know everything we report, that's the place to go, because we still have to censor ourselves on YouTube. But we realize that there are, almost 2 million of you who prefer to watch us on YouTube, so we don't want to abandon you over there. On Rumble, if you want to support our work, you can leave something called a Rumble rant. That's their paid chat if it's over the $5 US cutoff. It's obligatory. We're reading it on air. If it's under that, we'll do our best, time permitting. On YouTube, their paid chat is called Super Chat. Same rules apply, but also there's an additional way. So if you're not able to catch the live version of the show, you can leave something called a super thanks. That's a paid comment. And we're just so grateful that 10 years on, you continue to choose us because, you're forced to support media that you dislike, or rather that dislikes you. Thanks to government subsidies. And we realize that you have less money in your pocket than ever before. And we're just so grateful that you choose to support us. Let's get into some of the news of the day. It happened on Friday. Ezra Levant caused a real malfunction at the junction for the health minister, Marjorie Michelle, or Michael. I'm not sure how I would say that. I'm not sure I care because I can't imagine that she's going to stay in that position all that long. Ezra asked her, like, the lightest. Like, it was like a lob. It wasn't even like a softball. It was like a beach ball question at her about the ostrich farm. And her handlers were like, next question. They pulled the old Jagmeet Singh at the debates. Like, I'm not taking a question from you. Move on. And we should point out, it was a little bit of backroom dealing for us to even be accredited at this thing. The least they could have done was answer the question, but no. Oh, by the way, the young lady, 2 back from Ezra, is with the Western Standard, a very recent graduate of the Student Journalism Conference. So it's really nice to see her in the line to put a question to a federal minister. So very nice to see, and congratulations to the Western Standard. Let's watch Ezra's question.
Thank you, Minister, for agreeing to accredit Rebel News. I very much appreciate your dedication to freedom of the press. I have a question about the ostrich farm. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to ask about the lawsuit because I don't want you to talk about anything that are before the courts. But there was a letter, and I noticed in the statement you talk about Canada-U.S. cooperation. I know that Robert F. Kennedy Jr., your U.S. counterpart, has written saying he thinks that there's some medical research value in these ostriches because they had avian flu, but then have recovered and are now immune. In fact, he's offered to do the research and even to pay for it. It seems to me that we need allies around Trump's cabinet table. And if you could throw him a bone and say, sure, Secretary Kennedy, you can study these birds, it's sort of no skin off Canada's nose. And don't you think it would be helpful to have an ally in Trump's cabinet when we're doing our trade negotiations?
Prochaine question, merci.
That's my question. Don't you think it would be helpful to have a friend?
Next reporter, merci.
Oh, you're not going to answer, Minister?
Prochaine question, merci.
I don't understand. Did I do something wrong?
Next question, thank you.
Minister, did I miss an answer? I don't get it. Okay, I'll sit down. It's I guess it's question period, not answer period.
Merci beaucoup.
Sheila, if I may, I take away 4 things from that. 1, that was a brilliantly crafted question by our beloved big boss man,
That's why he's the
Ezra.
boss, yeah.
It was totally on point, and he also made it clear, I'm not trying to get you to comment on anything before the court, so they couldn't use that excuse. Second, that was a despicable non-answer. Third, Ezra's recovery was also brilliant. That line, oh, I guess it's question period, not answer period. He walked away with class and dignity. And fourth, for all those people that are saying, well, it wasn't the minister, it was our handlers, she could have said, no, excuse me,
Right.
I'd like to take this question. I want to answer it. She is the minister. Could you imagine a real leader? Could you imagine, Sheila, Donald Trump, who wants to answer a reporter's question, and his minion saying, no, next question? He wouldn't stand for it. He'd say, hey, get out of the way. I'm going to handle this. That was a farce. And you know what, Sheila? What a gift. Because if it was the typical liberal baffle gab, all these words that mean nothing, it would have been boring. But because of what happened, that went viral over the weekend.
Sure.
Millions of views. So, Liberal Party of Canada, thank you so much for that gift. And yet again, it blows away Mark Carney back in 2023 when he was asked by Ezra and Avi Yamini at the World Economic Forum in Davos about my assault at the hands of the RCMP trying to scrum Chrystia Freeland. Remember, Sheila, how we said he's all about a free press, how important that is? Another liberal lie.
Yeah, the health minister is an absolute idiot who doesn't actually believe in anything. She couldn't even answer the question because as you said, and I wrote it down, she could have said, excuse me, I'll just answer that question real quick. But she didn't because she doesn't have an answer because she doesn't know her file because she's an idiot. But also, shame on the journalist who came after him because she could have re-asked Ezra's question. Like somebody of principle, like if somebody did that to a journalist in front of me, I would have said, no, I'll wait. Please answer his question, or I'll re-ask that question that Mr. Levant just asked in the interest of the free press. But there's no solidarity with the free press in this country.
Who was that other journalist and what did she ask, Sheila?
I don't know. That's the thing. It's so inconsequential, no one cares. She had the opportunity to stand up for the free press, reach across ideological lines and say, like, hey, you might be left, I might be right, or vice versa, but we're both here because we care about the free press and holding politicians to account. Whatever her question is, nobody cares or knows. She could have re-asked the question, and guess who also would have been a person of consequence over the weekend? Her, right?
Sheila, that's absolutely brilliant. I never thought of that. It's something I'll keep in my back pocket if we ever see this play out again. But you're absolutely right. She could have said, with all due respect, Minister, maybe I missed something. I didn't hear an answer to Mr. Levant's question. What say you? And would she be given this hustle too? Or would they answer her, not because the question's invalid, but because Ezra being part of Rebel News, we're invalid?
She didn't even have to go that far. She just could have said, you know what, I'm not going to ask my question until you answer Mr. Levant's question.
Exactly.
She did, that's all she had to do the right thing. And I say this with experience because somebody did that for me. And it was shockingly Al Jazeera and Global News International. Imagine being with Al Jazeera, Qatari, the state broadcaster, and they knew that they had to stand up for freedom of the press. It was at the Media Freedom Conference, if you can believe that, hosted by Chrystia Freeland and the foreign minister in the UK in London. And we were supposed to go to a press conference, and we were standing there. Oh, thank you for bringing that up.
I remember.
It was myself and then Andrew Lawton, when he was a journalist, he was there, and they said, oh, we don't have enough room for all in this warehouse where we're holding it. And Global News, their international correspondent, and the Qatari journalist said, no, we'll just wait then until you find a bigger room, because literally they came out and said, we don't have enough room, so we'll take you, and you. And which two did they leave out?
Yeah. What are the odds?
What a gold figure. And so they just said, see, they're saying, there's space. And then one of them says, this lady, she's with Global, and she said, this is a media freedom conference. We're not going without everybody. So that made a difference. That led me to, this is a media freedom conference. Please don't do that, is what the journalist said to Chrystia Freeland's press handler. That the same thing could have happened for Ezra.
But you know what, Sheila? Let me ask you to speculate. I have an idea that was then, this is now, that if this exact same scenario played out, maybe Al Jazeera, being foreign, they would go to bat for us. But the Canadian mainstream media, I hearken back to Ezra, because this looks like it goes back to, like, say, 2016, around there. I hearken back to what Ezra says when we first started with the mainstream media, this idea of rebel media. Oh, isn't it cute? Look how they're trying. They're we'll let them sit at the kids' table and cater to them. Now our views outpace theirs, and we're not so cute anymore.
Right. We do it without government money also. The reason I think that what happened to us, I think even in 2018, it wouldn't have happened for us in Canada. But these guys are international journalists outside of the hive mind of the Canadian mainstream journalist cabal. They aren't so polluted with government. Like, yes, their companies are recipients of government money, of course, Al Jazeera and Global News, but they're sort of outside that cloistered Mean Girls club because they're working internationally. But if that same thing had happened, well, we've seen it dozens of times. If that same thing happened in Canada, they would have been like, or shoving us, screaming at us, saying racist things to us, as we saw at the Debates Commission.
Oh, Sheila, that's not conjecture, because around the same time, maybe a year later, I attended a World Press Freedom event at the Chorus headquarters in downtown Toronto. Remember, World Press Freedom. And I'm looking at the displays. Almost half of it were about transgenders doing journalism in the third world. I mean, it was beyond woke. Guess which media organization was the only one to be frog marched out of the Chorus building? Wow, Efren is on fire. Look at that. He already called it up. First of all, I'm being snubbed.
Why is that lady dressed like Beetlejuice?
First, it was snubbed, and then we're told to leave. So there's your World Press Freedom. Can you imagine?
Yeah. Also, you were slightly dressed like Beetlejuice. Anyways, let's just because I can't really go all too long. Let's move ahead. Still on the ostrich topic.
Yes.
Drea, she points out, 2 ostrich farm supporters were arrested over the weekend as concerns over CFIA's care for the birds grow. 2 men were arrested and charged. One was trying to feed the ostriches. I think that's Jim Kerr.
Oh, the bubble bus guy.
Yeah. He was arrested and charged after trying to help the ostriches. Because, and look, just count the birds. A lot of people are concerned, and the less the CFIA is forthcoming with information, the more speculation fills the void. And so the farmers and their supporters are saying, please count the birds. We don't think you're caring for them properly. In fact, some people are speculating that the CFIA is killing the birds. Now, I'll give you my theory. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if it's not. My theory is the CFIA would be more than happy to neglect the birds to death. And we've seen that. So that just sort of furthers their theory that, oh, look, the birds are sickly. And so they must die. So they're just sort of helping move the needle in the direction of sickly by neglecting the birds. But my view on this is the CFIA has care and control of these birds. These birds are an asset that belongs to the farmers in the same way that you would ask your financial agent to prove to you that your assets are still intact. They need to prove to these farmers that the same number of birds that they turned over to them are still there. You know, if you said to your bank, who is in care and control of your money, give me my bank statement so I can see how much money and investments I have, and the bank said no, they'd be in a world of trouble. They have a fiduciary obligation to you, and CFIA has taken control of these animals, which are an asset. They need to prove to the farmers that that asset still exists.
Well, first of all, Sheila, if what you're saying is, and I want to make sure I understand what you're saying, are you telling our audience, and you've been there for several days on the site, that the CFIA would be that despicable to purposely starve the ostriches?
Now, I'm not saying they're purposely starving them, but when a bird became ill, they did not allow the farmers to offer care. There's some allegations that they did not offer electrolytes properly to the bird. They would not allow the farmer's vet, because you need an exotic livestock vet who's very knowledgeable about ratites, which is this very specific kind of bird. Didn't allow them access to the bird, and then ultimately the bird died.
That's unbelievable. And, this is a point I've made on a previous show, the Friday panel, where you weren't there. It was actually Drea, who's been doing great work on the ground, by the way, out at that ostrich farm. What is it, Sheila, when it comes to the government and animal husbandry? In downtown Toronto, if you can believe it, we have a coyote problem. What is the city's answer? Put up signs saying, get to know your coyote neighbor. Oh, hi, Mr. Wile E. Coyote. Oh, what happened to my hand? Right? When these animals should be called, look, I love animals, but these are alpha predators where they are, especially with the absence of bears and pumas. So for the sake of the pets and little ones, we have to take care of that. Marineland, you have belugas, right? Where the park is now saying to the federal government, feed these whales or we're going to kill them, which to me, Sheila, is shocking because as I understand it, belugas are endangered. And if you have an endangered animal, you cannot cull them unless they are beyond the state of recovery. And I don't think that's the case with the belugas, the dolphins, the harbor seals, and a lot of elk, deer, and a few bears at this giant Marineland and game farm park. And yet, here we have ostriches that are perfectly healthy, according to everything we know, and they're on a jihad to call them. I don't get it.
Well, and the more research I do into ratites, thanks to a little bit of help from the American Ostrich Association, ratites, specifically ostriches, are used for research because of a very specific type of immune system that they have, wherein they contract these diseases and they don't transmit the disease. They'll get the disease, they'll get sick from the disease, and then they don't transmit the disease. So doing research on them with these highly infectious diseases, it makes more sense because they don't become a disease vector, right? So the disease sort of stops with them, and then, the ones that survive develop a robust immunity, and then you study that, and then you do research on that. It's to the point where they're trying to develop chickens in the UK with this specific kind of immune system that ostriches already have.
Oh, that's interesting.
To stop the spread of avian flu. And it's like, well, we got these ostriches right here. Quit killing them. In the meantime, they're trying to genetically engineer birds in the UK so that they have a similar robust immune system, so that if they do contract avian flu, it just sort of doesn't spread from there. It doesn't make any sense. It's because the government is always unbending in their rules. We saw it during COVID. Now we're seeing it right now.
So is that, the bottom line? I'm beginning to connect the dots, Sheila, that because these ostriches have an immune system that has not been brought to you by Pfizer, this is competition?
Well, that I think is an underlying possible reason. I think we're attributing malice where stupidity will do. A lot of these government rules are administered and also brought to you by people who are unthinking automatons. And so they can't see nuance in anything. All they know is, for example, COVID is bad, gathering is bad, close the churches. Now, avian flu, birds catch avian flu is bad, kill the birds. So they don't have any nuance about like, okay, but these are a different kind of bird. They are used in research, but not just that, not just these specific birds, but the species is used in research because of their immune systems. Shouldn't we treat them differently? Shouldn't we treat the churches the same as we did the liquor stores? Like they can't see nuance. There's no like, hey, this is bad, let's do something different. They don't, it's just unbending automatons. They have a clipboard, and they have to do what's on the clipboard and never think for yourself.
And Sheila, because you've forgotten more about this file than I'm ever going to learn, I want to be clear about something. There is no danger from these ostriches to people or other animals. No. Is that correct?
Right. They're not migratory birds.
Then this is maddening. I don't get it.
They're not used for food. They're not migratory birds. They're not a danger. If anybody thinks they're a danger, we wouldn't see police leaning on the fence all the time. Like, you know what I mean? If they were in danger, they would clear out that protest encampment because people are coming and going there all the time. And if avian flu were a danger to people, they wouldn't let people there. Nobody believes it except the CFIA, and even they don't believe it. By the way, these, if I had to guess, many of these CFI agents have no experience with livestock whatsoever. I watched the two of them try to herd one lone ostrich through a fence, and it was just comical. Like, it's just, you've never dealt with livestock before. You sort of, somebody comes up from one side and somebody comes from the other, and you sort of push them through. It's pushing cattle, but with ostriches, and they couldn't do it. They just couldn't figure it out. They were being outsmarted by an ostrich. It was kind of pleasant to watch a little bit.
And another angle here, Sheila, in terms of law enforcement, did you get the idea that maybe the Mounties hated being there, doing 100%. What they've been asked to do?
Yes and no. Look, I will say that the police are so light-handed with the protesters, and they know the protesters are no threat. Because, again, if they were going to cull these birds, they would clear the protest encampment because they would not be able to manage it at the time of, you know, the order of execution. They are just letting people come and go. I think they're just doing like sort of keeping a loose count of how many people are there at all times. But all things considered, like, look, I was there. I've worked in some worse places. If I were a cop at a Vernon or Kelowna or Kamloops or Golden, and they said to me, yeah, you get to hang out in a really pretty place and just sort of sit in a lawn chair all day, which is what I see a lot of them doing. And then we truck in some sandwiches for you. Maybe you have to fly a drone every once in a while. This is not the worst job these cops have ever done in their lives when, you know, you're dealing with the opioid outbreak in the same towns that these guys are being brought in from. Oh. This is a pretty gravy job. I would take it.
One last thing, Sheila. What these people that have been there, I guess, for weeks or even months now, you know, the demonstrators, how would you classify that kettle of fish?
They are an interesting cross-section of humanity. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. Okay. Just absolutely nice people. And there are a lot of people there who are there for a lot of different reasons. There are people who truly believe that the ostriches are beautiful and mystical. That's their business. Oh. There are people who, yeah, they just love these ostriches. There are people like me who think they're slightly weird, but as a farmer, I believe in property rights and I believe in due process. And I think none of those things are in consideration of the government here. There are people who see this as more government overreach there, and that's why they're there. That there are people who reject big pharma, and I think there's a strain of at least 90% of all of these causes going through a lot of the people that are there, but they are from all walks of life. There's, there's your people playing weird instruments for the birds and people who are dancing for the birds. And then there are people like me who are like, this is just unscientific lunacy, and they'll come for the cattle next. So, I mean, it's like COVID, where you're like, these people in other times might cross the road to avoid each other. They don't seem politically aligned, but they see the government as the boogeyman here, and they are right. And so there's this strange parade that's marching, and maybe someone will get in front of it and lead it.
And Sheila, unless I missed something, because maybe something got by me, I haven't seen the animal rights activists, the official organizations, the PETAs, the animal justices. I haven't seen them weigh in on this. And is there an unspoken reason why they wouldn't? Because I thought they're all about saving animals' lives.
No, David, they're not. PETA has kill shelters, right?
Oh, I know that.
Because they don't think that animals should be owned or possessed by people. And so they think they're better off dead than in prison at the hands of these farmers. But also they also don't believe that animals, even in the most humane of ways, should be used in research. And I'm not talking about, testing mascara on bunnies. I'm talking about the bird lays an egg, and then you take the egg and then you use the egg for research to check for antibodies, and then you use those antibodies in a development of medicines that might save people's lives. They don't, even in the most hands-off sort of manipulation of animals, they're against that. They think these birds are better off dead than in the care of these people who love them.
But, Sheila, here's the thing, though. For those who are saying, well, just release them into the wild, I can't tell you how many comments we get from our Marineland stories. Just get those whales to the St. Lawrence, let them go. That is a death sentence. They've been born in captivity. They don't know how to hunt for their food. I assume it's the same thing for the ostriches, but you're telling me that for these animal rights organizations, death becomes them. That's a better alternative than being in captivity? For the animal rights activists. And, with these whales, by the way, you just can't release them into the wild. No. They are highly intelligent. They're somewhere in between like pigs and dogs and maybe even past monkeys and people. And they don't do well released. Like, for example, the killer, and again, I say this, I'm by no means an animal rights activist, but Keiko was the star of Free Willy and was released into the wild and never properly integrated into a pod, and ultimately died of pneumonia. He lived only for a year after he was released. They literally did Free Willy, and he was not able to survive. He just basically languished. So they need to go to a place that is familiar with the struggles of these large whales that have been held in captivity, because they can't rejoin a pod. They just can't rejoin the world. Anyways. How sad.
One more thing on this topic. I'm just going to touch on it because people have been like, Sheila, what do you think about this? So I'll tell you what I think. Calgary, a petting zoo near Calgary. It's Butterfield Acres Petting Zoo. It's closed due to 9 cases of avian flu in their, I think they're birds, ducks, if I had to guess, ducks probably. Maybe some fancy chickens, maybe some guinea hens. This is a petting zoo. As much as I'm sure the farmers really have a lot of love for their chickens and their Muscovy ducks, which are ugly but also slow moving so kids can pet them.
I find that funny somehow.
It is. They're the sort of like the ones with the ugly red faces, the ducks, and sometimes they're black. They move really slow and then they're cumbersome, and so kids can sort of run up and pet them. They're going to be culled for sure, so that Butterfield Acres can reopen for the last little bit of spooky season. This is different. These are like $20 ducks. You know what I mean? And their lifespan isn't that far. They have no research value. Of course, they're not meant for human consumption either, but you're not losing 40 years of genetics by culling some dime a dozen Muscovy ducks, right? It's different. So, and the farm says, yeah, it's migratory bird season.
Okay.
That's it. So now you've got my opinion. I think, look, they got it from migratory birds. This is different than what's happening at the ostrich farm. They're not losing research value. They're not losing 40 years of genetics. These are just petting zoo ducks.
That's really interesting, Sheila, when you say they got it from migratory birds.
Yeah, of course they did.
But how does the actual transmission of the virus happen?
So, I think it's just the same way people catch flu, just being in close quarters. Migratory ducks will land on their little petting zoo pond, maybe have a little nibble out of their food and maybe have a little drink out of their feeder. And the transmission can happen that way. And,
interesting.
And so that's how they catch them. And it's just, what are we going to do? Kill all the migratory birds?
And speaking of birds and killing, Sheila, one last point. I just want to get a little clarity on from you or Drea. Drea's not here, of course, but if I was to ask you to look into your proverbial crystal ball, how does this BC ostrich farm drama play out? I don't know if it's days, weeks, months, but what is going to happen in the final analysis?
I don't know. I'm 50% that the government will just proceed with this because they don't know how to back out. And then there's some latent anti-Americanism in the background. As soon as the Americans said, yeah, please, if you wouldn't mind, just keep the birds. We'll even pay for you to keep the birds. That's enough for the elbows up crowd to say, oh my God, RFK, blah, blah, keep them out. Put your elbows up. But maybe the courts will hear what the farm has to say and hear about the research value and hear about the science that these ostriches and emus and what's the other one? The kiwi bird. They're different. They're not chickens. They're not ducks. Yeah. They're not geese. They should be while in my mind, I'm like, these are just long-legged murder geese. They're really not, and they shouldn't be treated the same way.
But Sheila, isn't this uncanny that right now we have a major tariff tiff with the U.S., our biggest trading partner? We want to be building bridges. We want to be open to dialogue and diplomacy. And if RFK is making these pronouncements, then why not entertain it for the bigger picture? The economic ties of our nations. Like I said, this is unbelievable that they're slamming the door on this kind of an overture.
Are you crazy, David? Have you not been paying attention the last, 10 months of Canadian politics where everything is about slamming the door on the Americans? Everything, our relationship is over. It's done with them. We have to go. We're basically European now. This is just the way these people are. And it's so unappealing to us Westerners because we feel more culturally aligned north-south than we do east-west, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Let's hit an ad break, and then we'll come back because we're approaching the top of the hour, and let's go for 20 minutes past. So let's hit an ad break, please.
by connecting businesses with qualified candidates. Workforce Alberta helps employers change their story.
Do you agree with me? It is time to make Canada great again. And that is why we at Rebel News have teamed up with MCGA hats to introduce, well, the fashion sensation of 2025. Oh, and by the way, these beautiful hats, they are made in Canada. We don't rely on cheap imports coming over from China. So what are you waiting for, folks? Show your pride. This is the perfect thing for a patriot to wear, or maybe there's a patriot in your life that you would like to gift such a hat. Please go to mcgahats.ca. That's mcgahats.ca. Don't be shy about it. Wear this cap. Let everybody know you want to make Canada great again. Well, Sheila, as you know, I live in Richmond Hill. I'm glad I don't live in Richmond without the hill in British Columbia, because I cannot imagine what these homeowners are going through. Working decades to pay off your house and then being informed by the city, you know what, due to the court, you might not actually have title to your homes. Sheila, this is unbelievable, this story.
Yeah, Dorea's been really covering it as well as she's been covering the ostrich farm story. So the city of Richmond, actually, Mayor Malcolm Brodie sent a warning letter to residents about the BC Supreme Court decision. But of course, city councilors say, when specifically Cash Heed says the move is premature with an appeal underway. Well, you know, so what? So the homeowners are supposed to just live in sort of the gray area while they wait on someone to tell them what's going on? At least keep them updated. Their property value just could be absolutely neutralized. So Drea obtained a full letter, and it was hand delivered to Richmond residents, signed by Mayor Brodie, warning that private land is now at risk. 40% of the claimed lands have already been declared Aboriginal title by the Supreme Court. And she notes that the decision's currently on appeal by all parties. But that includes private homes, roads, and submerged riverfront land. And if we can show the green zone here, the entire green zone, it's in the second part of her tweet. If we can bring that up. The entire green zone is under claim on appeal as the Cowichan tribe seek to expand Aboriginal title to that full area. Landowners got no notice at any point until it was too late, and they get no say. So this is why people should be wary of land acknowledgements, because this is where it leads.
Great point. And I can tell you, Sheila, if this virus spreads across our dominion, if this ever comes to my neck of the woods, given that Lady Menzoid and I have worked our asses off for 40 years, as have so many other Canadians, you know, to get a piece of the Canadian promise, as Pierre Poilievre calls home ownership, only to have it being taken away like this. I know where my next home is going to be. It's one of two places, in prison or in the morgue, because I will not be going willingly. Not a damn chance.
On the flip side, I hope this happens to Ottawa, because those people love their land acknowledgements.
Yep.
And, you know, they're constantly saying this is on the traditional lands of, you know, the Anishinaabe or any other band. And I just think, okay, perfect, have it. It's all yours, buddy. Yep. Take her away. We don't want it. But imagine being a homeowner now thinking about selling your home to retire to Florida, maybe. Or, you know, this is the West, so let's say you're selling your home to retire to Vancouver Island, and this is coming to Vancouver Island, don't kid yourself. Or you're selling your home to retire to Scottsdale. Who's going to buy your house?
Oh, Sheila.
What bank is going to give a mortgage on that property, even if you do find somebody who's crazy enough to buy your house? What bank is going to finance that?
Yeah. Pending a Supreme Court overturn of this ludicrous judgment, you're absolutely right. You have a stranded asset now. You can't sell it. And like you said, what bank is going to get into the business of financing homes in this area? This is crazy.
Your single largest investment vehicle is your house. For a lot of people, it's their retirement vehicle. You accumulate the asset, you liquidate the asset, you go somewhere cheaper and live off the money. That's a lot of people's retirement plan. That's not my retirement plan. I just get to move into a smaller house on my farm, watch the kids take the place over. But this just nukes all of that for a lot of people. By the way, this is a heavily Chinese area, and they vote overwhelmingly conservative in that area, and there's going to be a lot of angry people. And again, this is why those land acknowledgements are not meaningless. You have to stop.
It is. And by the way, for our Natives brothers and sisters, Sheila, who see through this hypocrisy of land acknowledgements, why don't we, I don't know, put our effort and money into something really tangible, like those 30 plus reserves that are still under a boil water advisory? Why don't we get them clean water instead of doing these nonsensical land acknowledgements? But you're right. If I'm a lawyer for any of these Native activists that are going after this, I'm going to use, for lack of a better term, the white man's words against them. You keep acknowledging that you're on unceded Native territory. Well, guess what? We're here to take it back. So you're absolutely right. This is these woke phrases are now fraught with danger, I think.
Yeah, just so you know, and I'm just going to dig down on the data, but drinking water, these are just the short-term ones, because some of these boil water advisories are going on 30 years in some of these places. Yeah. But as of, yesterday, there are 37 short-term drinking water advisories in place on First Nations communities south of 60. So that's the 60th parallel. That doesn't count like the Yukon, Northwest Territories, Nunavut. That number doesn't count those in British Columbia. You have to contact the First Nations Health Authority directly about there. So there are other things that activists could be doing to make their communities better rather than stealing the property of other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Anyways, they give advice to run the drinking water until it's ice cold. My goodness. Anyways, drug use rampant on reserve, gangs rampant on reserve, lots of things we could be doing to make life better for our fellow Canadians who live on reserve. Let's start there.
My only issue, Sheila, is do you implicitly trust the Supreme Court of Canada to get it right? I mean, when you have a Justice, Sheila Martin, saying, oh, yeah, don't use the word woman, use person with a vagina. That kind of makes me a little queasy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? That's another thing. In the new country, as Lisa and I always love to muse, in the new country, maybe we'll elect our justices like they do in Florida, and for our Supreme Court, maybe we'll have hearings so that we know exactly who's being appointed, because right now our activist courts are betraying us as Canadians and supplanting Canadian values for their own. We've got one more story, I think, before we wrap up. This is Danielle Smith continuing to be the shadow prime minister, I think. The anti-Americanism is just mental from the current liberal government in charge of the country. And so we have Danielle Smith operating as bizarro world prime minister, trying to repair the relationship with the Americans, making sure that they buy our stuff, and trying to save the industries that Doug Ford is driving into the dirt by constantly picking fights with what used to be our American friends and customers. So she points out that the U.S. is concerned about cheap Chinese steel being shipped to Canada and Mexico and dumped in the U.S. She addresses how Canada could help out the Ontario auto sector. But Doug Ford is having none of it, because he last week he said, your suggestion, Premier Smith, before it was her suggestion, he said, no, those have to stay in place. So let's listen.
Jeez.
Well, I'm very sympathetic to what Doug is experiencing in Ontario. Not only is he most impacted by auto sector and steel, he's also impacted by steel. And that's part of the reason I signed an MOU with Ontario, that we would prioritize buying our fleet vehicles from the list of cars that are finished in Canada, mostly in Ontario. And I would encourage others to do the same. Ontario produces, I believe, about 1.2 million vehicles, and many of them are not only all the way from heavy duty trucks all the way down to hybrid vehicles as well. So that's our commitment, and I think that that's the kind of cooperation that more and more premiers are going to have to do. Is if we're going to see a fewer number of finished cars in Ontario headed to the US, then we should look at changing our own purchasing practice so that we can support each other. When it comes to the retaliation on China on cars, I think it kind of misses the point. I think that what the Americans are concerned about is Chinese steel coming into the Canadian and Mexican market and being dumped into the US. I could be wrong, but I don't even think that this is a real priority for the Americans. I think that the issue around the EV tax may have been done at the time to try to provide some kind of pathway to a resolution with the US president. I don't think I've ever heard the US president raise that. So all it's doing right now is harming Western Canadian farmers, and it's not even protecting Doug's industry, because they don't have an electric vehicle industry. So it's a bit of a phony war that we've put in place 100% tariff on an industry that doesn't exist, and meanwhile the industries that do exist are getting punished. So I think there's other ways that we can help out the Ontario auto sector, but it's pretty clear to me that 100% tariff on EVs isn't the way to do it. I was in fact at a room, and I'm going to probably ask this in every room that I'm in. If there was no tariff on electric vehicles coming from China, how many of you would buy an electric vehicle from China? And I get zero hands being raised in the room everywhere I go. So if there is some notion that there's a whole pile of Canadians just waiting to displace Ontario's cars so that they can buy Chinese electric vehicles, I just don't think that's true.
But meanwhile, Sheila, Doug Ford and Justin Trudeau, going back 2 years ago on their Santa Claus tour through southern Ontario, betting tens of billions of dollars in these EV vehicles, like the one at the GM Cami plant in southwestern Ontario, which, by the way, is now mothballed. I think they sold maybe 1,200 of those EV vans in the US and about 240 in Canada. And then we have the EV battery plant in Windsor, Ontario. And, that's a very odd white elephant in the making, because you could always make the argument, well, even if we're throwing good money after bad, think of all the good paying jobs. Yeah, except that plant has 1,600 Koreans on the payroll. How we got into that kind of arrangement? I don't know any mega projects in South Korea where there are 1,600 Canadians being paid, but the market's not there. That's the first thing. And this is proving to be a monumental bad bet of tens of billions of dollars of our money. And Ford and Trudeau, well, Trudeau doesn't care anymore, but they should be ashamed of themselves.
Yeah. And just to compare what the Liberals were willing to sacrifice, and by the way, Doug Ford is willing to sacrifice for Ontario, 43,000 family farms in Alberta and Saskatchewan. 43,000. Those are just the farms themselves. Those are not the jobs that are created by it to save the auto sector in Ontario. And just to compare it to the steel industry, which apparently they're moving heaven and earth to save in Ontario, is roughly half the size in jobs alone. So 24,000 people are employed in the steel sector. We've got twice that many just in family farms. It's a $44 billion industry. There's 12 million acres in canola in Saskatchewan alone. That's not Alberta. That's not the bit that they plant in BC and then Manitoba. That's 12 million acres being sacrificed on the altar of these stupid electric vehicles. I just broke my pen in that nobody wants, as Premier Smith rightfully points out. And then they tell us that we have to get our elbows up and choose Canada. Canada's not choosing us at all.
But, to her point, Sheila, and I don't have the answer, because she was saying, what is the demand here for Chinese EVs? I'm not so sure. What has typically kept Chinese cars out of the North American market is the crash test data. You get 1 out of 5 stars. If you get 3 stars, that's considered pretty bad. You should get 4 or 5. The Chinese cars they've tested in the past didn't even get 1 star. They were disasters. But assuming they have fixed that issue, I can tell you earlier this year, Motor Trend magazine came out with a story showing the Chinese EV market. I had no idea it was so robust. Sheila, I'm talking SUVs, sedans, sports cars, minivans, all EVs, so many brands, so many models. Now, like I said, assuming they pass the crash test standard, and they come to this market and are selling for an affordable price, because let's figure, China is not paying their workers what we pay our workers, then I don't know. For the value proposition, maybe there is going to be some pent-up demand for those vehicles.
I just doubt it. I just don't think anybody really cares. But at the same time, maybe the Liberals are going to have to figure out whether there's a climate emergency or not. Because if they want us all driving these stupid things, they're going to have to let the affordable ones into the country. Or maybe there's no climate emergency.
Great point. But if you do, that further undermines all these EV plants and EV battery plants that have been funded by tens of billions of our tax dollars. Like, to your point earlier, you predicted those facilities are going to become casinos in the future.
Yeah, at least they'll be fun. My MP, Garnet Jennis, he posted to X just exactly that. Liberals are opposed to letting parliamentarians look at unredacted Stellantis contracts. Their amendment to redact key documents was defeated. Taxpayers gave billions to this company, yet the company is killing over 3,000 Canadian jobs. We need to see what deal the Liberals signed with Stellantis when they handed over public money.
Yeah, and by the way, Sheila, in the Department of There's plenty of blame to go around. I'm glad this fellow brought up Stellantis. Until recently, they had a CEO who was committed to all of, and Stellantis, by the way, folks, I know it almost sounds like the maker of a Viagra type of medicine, but that's Chrysler, Ram, Dodge, and Jeep. And basically, you had a CEO who had committed to a deadline of 2030. And think about that. 5 years beyond what the Liberals want, 2035, where all Stellantis vehicles would be EVs. And along the way, what is the most popular Stellantis vehicle on the market? A Ram 1500 pickup truck with the Hemi engine. Discontinued. Now coming back, by the way. Why? Because nobody's buying them. Sheila, I can tell you the Brampton assembly plant, which has been empty for 2 years now, for a couple of decades, was manufacturing the Dodge Challenger, Charger, and the Chrysler 300 in huge volume, profitable, and they stopped production to go down the EV route. And what do you have? You have the Dodge Charger Daytona EV. Sheila, can I ask you, have you seen even one on the road? This is the so-called first EV muscle car. And to make it a muscle car, it actually has a speaker that plays the soundtrack of a V8 engine, which I think is incredibly sad.
Oh my God, how embarrassing.
Exactly. That is embarrassing. It reminds me of, when we were younger as kids, putting a hockey card on a clothes peg on our spokes to make believe it was a motorcycle. God. But that guy's out of the picture, and they're reversing course. But the carnage that has been done on behalf of this EV fantasy has been so self-defeating. It's unbelievable. And you know what, Sheila? I'm sorry. Twice Chrysler has been bailed out. Same with General Motors. So maybe is that the reason they can virtue signal? Hey, we're too big to fail. Even if we get it wrong, the beleaguered taxpayer will come to our rescue.
Right. And I think it actually has nothing to do with the company. The unions pressure the government to do this. And that's why the government does it. I think the company would probably pivot real quick if they didn't have the market interference that the government does. We just saw this unfold with Starbucks. Starbucks hired a consulting firm back in 2021. You'll never guess the consulting firm. I'll give you a hint.
Does it start with an M?
McKinsey. Starbucks, which is everywhere. It's already pretty woke, right? Although to my delight, every time I go there, it seems as though they're hiring Canadians. Woke Canadians need jobs too. I don't want them sitting on social services at home just gobbling up government money. I want woke Canadians to have jobs too. And it seems as though they've been hiring those people. But the company globally hired McKinsey to make it a place for everybody. I thought it already was. But it wasn't woke enough. And then now, subsequently, they had to fire 900 workers and close 124 stores globally. And they hired the CEO from Chipotle, who doesn't bring in a lot of politics with his burrito bowls, to try to clean up the ship now because they literally went woker and got broker. And the same thing has happened, obviously, with Stellantis. The unfortunate part is the taxpayers footing the bill for the wokeness over at Stellantis.
Yeah, well, the Stellantis CEO is now gone, the guy behind this electrical fantasy. But tell me, Sheila, just so I understand this, McKinsey, because I mean, if you're to think of a woke, all-inclusive, if you will, place, it's got to be your local Starbucks. What advice did they give Starbucks that terribly backfired?
Let me just dig it up.
Okay.
Helping Starbucks design stores that are inclusive for all.
How were they not inclusive before?
I know.
I mean, they have sofas and easy chairs and everyone, you don't even have to be a customer. Sure, use the bathroom, even if you're going to, shoot up. I mean, it doesn't get more inclusive than that, does it?
Yeah. I don't know. Anyways, they just made it weird. And they sort of revamped the stores. It was sort of like an elevated, but also sort of mid-range coffee chain where you could feel sort of fancy and woke, but you weren't getting the Tim Hortons experience, and somehow they made that worse. So anyways, they went woker, they went broker. Oh, they changed their uniforms, and then everyone was mad about it. The new guy came back in and said, actually, you guys are all wearing black now. So let's see how it goes if they save this company from itself. It sort of seems as though, it seems as though they're like, you know what, let's really lean into this. And then Bud Light happened. And then they didn't learn anything and they kept going on it. And then here they are. So
I'm looking at this video and here's a person in a wheelchair that needs to communicate by sign language, and the store employee is communicating via sign language. So was that one of the mandates? You have to know American Sign Language in order to get a job behind the counter of a Starbucks?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of blogs about the horrible leftovers of McKinsey in their coffee experience. I could read these all day. I want them. They are going to caffeinate me.
That can't be done for me, Sheila. Sorry.
Letting the homeless into the bathrooms as a matter of company policy, and then that meant the stores became scary and nobody wanted to go to them.
But they're inclusive, Sheila. They're inclusive.
Right. And then so now I think a lot of those barista jobs are going to be replaced by AI. So AI will be spelling your name wrong on the cup. So that's good.
Wow.
Let's jump ahead to I just want to talk about this real quick, and then we'll do the Daily Cringe, a couple of chats, and then I've got to run.
Okay.
big thing on the mind of the CBSA. Now, I got to tell you guys, and I encourage all of you at home to do it, because you will feel so, like, you almost feel like you're watching an action movie, but also it's cheeky and fun. If you follow like any of the DHS, so Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Patrol, the regional ones like Rio Grande Valley or LA or whatever, I recommend that you follow those on whatever social media platform that you're following. But like, I enjoy the Facebook reels, Instagram reels of them, because they're funny, and like they like they show them arresting people and like playing funny music, and the ICE detainees, they're sort of arresting them, and even the guy who's like heading up like the operations, like the specialized operations, he sort of makes fun of the woke mayors in his social media and stuff. And it's just so good. Like, you feel like they're getting stuff done. You are excited. You feel like regular people are doing this. You don't feel disconnected from the process. It doesn't feel sterilized and weird. And then there's the CBSA. If you follow their social media accounts, you know that they're on the things that really matter to Canadians. Illegal paper plates. Like, this is what these people are up to. We're taking action to protect our economy. The CBSA is investigating whether certain imports of disposable paper plates, bowls, platters from China are being sold at unfair price. So it's unfair. They're worried that you might be getting a good deal at Dollarama.
Or is Doug Ford's company, Deco Labels, are they in the paper plate business and they can't compete?
Do you know what? I'm going to find this. I got to send this. Sorry, Efron, I'm going to send this to you because I shared this with some of my friends, and particularly my son, and I must have watched this 20 times. I'm like, the Americans are living in a different timeline than we are, and we deserve it. And hopefully one day we will have it in Canada, but we ain't got it right now. Maybe not Canada. Maybe we'll have it in the Free State of Alberta, but this ain't it. Whatever we're doing right now. Efron, I'm sorry, I got lost in my phone. I sent it in a private chat to you. It's a Facebook reel of I think it's a Customs and Border Patrol, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and it's their main account. But this is what their social media accounts look like, and ours are making sure that you don't get a good deal at Dollarama. Efron, did you find it? Okay, so watch. We got to turn the music up because the music makes this. Okay? Rewind and turn the music up. You got to go to the back to the beginning.
The taxi's waiting, he's blown his horn. Hold me like you'll never let me go. 'Cause I believe in on a jet plane. Don't know that I'll be back again. Oh babe, I hate to go.
Like, there's
all my back.
Yeah, my bags are packed. I'm ready to go. And then they have the guy sleeping in the jail cell. Like, this is what the U.S. Border Patrol is doing. And we've got the paper plate patrol.
You know, what I think about this, Sheila, shouldn't the CBSA, being a federal government agency, be happy of paper plates because they're not plastic plates? I thought we have to go paper, even though often the paper replacement products don't work as well as the plastic products, but never mind. So I'm having trouble, I don't know, computing this.
Let's just watch one more. Efron, I sent you one more, just so you can understand what we could have, but we don't have because we're Canadian. I sent it to you in a chat again, Efron. Whoever's running their social media accounts, it's got to be the meme lords of like the MAGA movement. They've all gotten jobs now in the bureaucracy, and like these Border Patrol accounts are my like personal indulgence. Like if I need a little pick me up, I just watch them happily deporting people. And you know, with the ones from the Rio Grande Valley where they're like catching people swimming and turning them away, or catching people on dirt bikes. You're like, yeah, like you feel like they're doing something. In Canada, no. Okay,
Hashtag welcome to Canada, Sheila.
You got to get the music going, Efron, though, because I think this is the Frank Sinatra one.
Come fly with me, let's fly away. If you can use some exotic booze, there's a bar in far Bombay. Come on and fly with me, let's fly away.
Like, it's just
Come
so good.
fly with me, let's float down to Peru.
Like, that's good, but you get the point.
And
they're joyfully deporting people, and you feel like the nation's getting funner and safer. And in Canada, dollars ram up paper plates.
Unbelievable.
Anyway. Yeah.
Sheila, that's fantastic. And I guess we have to wrap it up with the daily
we got
cringe
2 chats.
video.
Yeah, we got 2 chats real quick. Tip for Drea meeting. Thank you. Drea knows this. HR says, tip for Drea meeting in Richmond regarding possible title stripping from homeowners meeting at Richmond Hill City Hall, October 28th at 7 p.m. Yeah, she's on it. Don't worry. Wild Freedom 7 gives us $10. Is there anything like the BC land grab happening or potentially could happen in Alberta? Not currently, but this is a Supreme Court issue at this point. And that's why whatever's happening in British Columbia has to be fought with everything the people of British Columbia have. And they have to have a government that fights it. I'm not sure the NDP will in the way that it needs to be. Yep. Let's end real quick on the Daily Cringe. It's the No Kings. No.
Oh, no.
We have a king. It's from the post-millennial chants of no Trump, no KKK, no fascist USA at the No Tyrants protest in Toronto. And they had to change the name from No Kings to No Tyrants because we quite literally have a king.
No Trump, no KKK. No fascist USA. No Trump, no KKK. No
Elbows up.
USA. No Trump, no KKK. No fascist USA. No Trump, no KKK. No fascist USA. When our rights are under attack, what do we do?
Okay,
Yeah,
but
you know, Sheila,
you're
if
Canadian
I may-
weirdos. Like, I just don't know what they're
if you ask
protesting.
Central Casting to supply exactly who
This
you'd
is
think
it.
would come, it's these people.
No
But
surprises here.
Yeah, but no Trump, no KKK. Let's be very clear. It was the Democrat Party that was historically
For sure.
the party of slavery, of segregation, Jim Crow laws, not the Republicans. So they don't even know their history, Sheila.
No, of course not. They had to change it from No Kings because we're a constitutional monarchy. They forgot. They just want to tag along with whatever's happening in the United States. Now, of course, we know in the United States, those people are funded to be crazy. Like, those are Soros-funded protests or whatever. These people are, I think, doing it for free in Canada's most diverse city that's run by an NDP mayor. What are you protesting, you loons? Like, what?
Yeah.
You don't like the name of a street? She changes it just like that. Like, what are you protesting?
And Sheila, I hate to be a nitpicker, but what's with the Pride Progress flag at this thing? I mean, what's the connection?
They say their rights are under attack. They just love to be victims, even when they're not being victimized. Honestly, these people, what are you protesting? Like, they probably tripped over 10 homeless people to get to that thing. Do something about that. Yeah. I hate to sound like Jordan Peterson, but clean up your room first.
Yeah. Make your bed.
Exactly. Okay, I think
Well,
we're
Sheila,
done. Efron needs the studio.
100%. That was a lot of fun today. And by the way, folks, thank you for your patience with us being 20 minutes late due to circumstances beyond our control. I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank those who gave a super chat. It's how we pay the bills around here. Tomorrow, I believe it is Sheila Gunn Reid and the lovely Lise Merle doing the live stream at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I believe I'm back on Friday for our roundtable panel discussion. In the meantime, as always, stay safe and stay sane.